Grr.
Hey dolls, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with another makeup and movies, and I've got a new backdrop. I decided that the orange was clashing with my new hair, so I went for a nice somber, eye-sensitive gray. I hope you all like it. This week's makeup, I am using the Beauty Bay Bright Mattes palette, 42 shades, no waiting. So I am going to be creating this fabulous look on my face while we talk about the classic fabulous movie, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It is a spectacular movie about drag, about gay life. Ironically, no one in it's gay, but it's still, I thought, did an excellent job and told an excellent story. So, if you want to hear more about that movie and see how I got all this on my mug, well, just stay tuned. Okay, so before we get to the movie, let's get to the makeup. I recently got this fabulous palette gifted to me by one of my Patreoners, Leon Plamaker, and it is from Beauty Bay, which is a British makeup company. They do their own line of stuff, and this is one of them. It's their Bright Mattes, and I've been in love with this palette since the first time I saw it. This is the other thing, huge mirror, like that's, I can't get a mirror that size at the dollar store. So I'm going to be doing some purple and then some orange and red on this. So I'm going to go in with Drama Queen, the purple. So this movie, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, was released in 1994. This was a huge groundbreaking film. First of all, it was an Australian film, and I mean, short of Mad Max, nobody really ever talked about Australian movies. I mean, I'm sure there was some. I can't tell you any. Like, I can tell you lots since. Priscilla is the reason I watched Muriel's Wedding. Strictly Ballroom, Baz Luhrmann, learning about Baz. This is all from Priscilla, because up until this point, I really had no knowledge about Australian film. And then Priscilla came along. It was shot in a couple of months for $2 million American. And in 1994, so this was probably shot in 93, $2 million was still a lot of money. Nobody walks around with $2 million. Like, I don't care what year it is. Money is money, and if you don't have it, you'd like to know about the ones that do. Okay, now I'm going in with Make Them Wink. The thing I loved about Priscilla was that this was about drag queens. And this was a movie about drag queens. So the wardrobe really had to be above and beyond. Do you know what I mean? It couldn't just be your local stand-in model girls at the local pub. This had to be, regardless, this had to be a full-face attack. Wardrobe in Priscilla was so spectacular. And the makeup. I think that the combination of those two departments really are the heroes of this movie. And so much so, the only award that it really won, like at the Oscars, it was nominated for a bunch, but it only won for wardrobe. And in fact, the irony of that is that the production only had, of its $2 million, $20,000 available to the wardrobe department, period. This is what they got. This is what they had. Make it work. And I think they did an excellent job. One of the things that they were known for was at the Oscars, Lizzie Gardner, who was one of the two designers, it was Lizzie Gardner and Tim Chappell. They had made a credit card dress, a dress made of credit cards, but, and I think they were all American Express cards, couldn't get clearance from American Express to feature the dress in the movie. Idiots. So after the film became a huge hit, Lizzie, I guess, either got permission or I guess didn't need it to wear the dress to the Oscars to accept her Oscar in it. The other thing I thought that was just amazing was because they didn't have a big budget for wardrobe, a lot of the wardrobe does kind of, from an audience point of view, come off as very cheap, very handmade. But at the same time, I have to say, that's what I wanted to see from this movie. that level of authenticity. Like these are drag queens that are constantly going from booking to booking. They couldn't wear flashy outfits in this. It wouldn't have worked for the nature of this type of drag that we're looking at. I mean, there's even scenes where they're on the bus traveling and sewing something or fussing with something. And this is to me a much truer sense of drag. Like, you know, there's just a certain level of drag where if you're not doing it yourself, you don't wear it. The other thing about this movie is if the wardrobe and makeup made it, the soundtrack sealed the deal. The majority, I think, if not all the music in this, except for maybe some orchestrated stuff, it's all ABBA. Now, this was the first movie to me that I saw an ABBA soundtrack in. I wasn't a huge ABBA fan. I absolutely knew who they were, and I absolutely recognized all the music in the movie. But I knew more about ABBA after watching the movie than I did before. All through the 70s, that's all you heard was ABBA. But we're talking about 94. There was a lot of deconstructed music being played, especially in soundtracks and that. So to have something old like ABBA was really great. Now, what's interesting is there's another Australian movie, I mentioned it earlier, Muriel's Wedding. And this movie is the reason that Toni Collette is in our world. I love this movie. And what's funny is ABBA played very heavily in their soundtrack. Now, what's ironic isn't that they both played ABBA. I mean, you know, trends happen, but they were being shot the same year in Australia. What else is interesting is that Bill Hunter, who is in Priscilla as Bob, he was also in Muriel's Wedding and had to fly between both sets. They filmed almost simultaneously, so it wasn't odd for him to leave from one set and go to the other. And Bill Hunter, he's a brilliant character actor from Australia. He was also in Strictly Ballroom, which is one of my favorites. I'm going to review Strictly Ballroom. If y'all haven't seen that, look it up. It is fantastic. It's funny, I think at the time, the only real name was Terence Stamp. He had done a bunch of movies through the 60s and 70s. He was once voted Hollywood's most handsome leading man, like very much that person, very virile. They're always dating a model. And he got cast to play Bernadette, the transgendered woman. And he wasn't their first choice. There were some interesting names bantied around to play Bernadette. One who I think would have been spectacular to watch was David Bowie. Now, when they say that names were bantied around, I don't know if they were offered these roles. I don't know if it was something that was actually an action or if it was just somebody going, oh, wouldn't it be fun? But David Bowie's name came up, of all people. So did John Cleese. John Cleese turned it down. He was actually offered it and turned it down. Somebody else who was offered the role was Tim Curry. And I think Tim Curry spent a lot of his career trying to distance himself from Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I understand. I feel badly that Tim Curry may have spent a lot of his career trying not to be seen as Frankenfurter. John Hurt was also somebody they were considering, or at least thinking about, but he, I don't know, for whatever reason, and again, I don't know. I haven't been able to find anything that says why some of these people ended up not doing the parts. The one person I was sorry to hear turn this role down was Tony Curtis. He said to the director, Stefan Elliott, that he started his career in a dress, he might as well end it in one. And he, I think from all accounts, was very prepared to do the role. But the reason he ended up turning it down was because his wife, I guess she didn't want him to do it. But Terence Stamp, I thought, was excellent. I think he did an excellent job playing this woman. And one of the reasons why I think it worked was because as an actor, Terence Stamp, he only saw Bernadette as being this beautiful woman and, you know, a very passing, beautiful, transgendered creature of delights, and played her as such, and excellently so. But Stefan Elliott told the cinematographer to not film Bernadette in flattering lights, like to catch those hard shadows and you know, sweaty lips and things like that, and because I guess he wanted that rawness. But what was interesting was because Terence Stamp doesn't, he's one of these actors that doesn't like to watch the daily footage. A lot of actors, I'm like that. I don't like to, I do a better job when I have no idea what I look like. That way, if somebody likes what I'm doing, then I keep doing it. Whereas if I see it and think, oh my God, I look crazy, I stop doing it. And that's just how I roll. But yeah, so Terence Stamp, I know I've read reports where it's said that he was a little shocked at the finished product being so harsh and not so ladylike. One of the first scenes that they filmed in drag for this movie was their number in that when they meet Bill and his wife, and they're doing that number in the pub, and when they end, nobody claps, and then Cynthia comes in all of her sexy loveliness, and the crowd goes wild. Well, it was very, you know, here they were literally shooting this scene in a bar with the locals, like just whoever happened to live in this town. And so it was a very, you know, trial by fire type of situation for these actors. Not just Terence Stamp. I mean, Terence Stamp had more of a career to be concerned with, but Guy Pearce, who played Felicia, she had been on Neighbours, which was a Australian soap opera. And so, like, he was at the beginning of his career. And then Hugo Weaving had been, you know, performing in television and film as well, and had done a few things here and there. But again, nothing huge. I mean, all of them were nervous, but the most nervous in the group definitely had to be Hugo, as Terence Stamp. Just more people would have recognized him just walking down the street. Now, because Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce were so relatively unknown, they definitely weren't the only or first choices for these roles. Tick, who is the Hugo Weaving character, they had initially approached Rupert Everett to do that, and he was on board. He seemed to want to do it and everything. And then the Guy Pearce character of Adam Whiteley, Felicia, they approached Jason Donovan, who's a singer. He was on Neighbours alongside Guy Pearce. And apparently what happened, the reason they didn't do it, from what I could find, is that they were dicks. Apparently they didn't like each other, so they were just outwardly hostile towards each other. But apparently both of them were quite dismissive and rude with the production company. And keep in mind, this was a production that had no money. So there's no room for people to be mean. Do you know what I mean? Because most of the people that you're working with are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. I recently got a bunch of stuff from BH Cosmetics, and they were having a sale. And one of the things they had a sale on was this, it's just called a base booster. And it's meant for eyeshadow glue and glitter. So just to help your, I'm going to be putting some glitter on the lids. Now, Guy Pearce's support group, friends, actor friends, and I would say mostly just friends and actors. I can't imagine an agent would talk somebody out of something unless, you know, unless the agent was worried about his designs on being a certain type of actor, like, you know, leading male roles. Doing a gay character, especially in the 90s even. This was 94, so still fairly new territory for actors. Uh, it was really kind of frowned upon. If you wanted a proper career as a leading man, you didn't play gay roles. Never mind cross-dressing. And yet, what's funny is historically, anyone who's done a gay character and or a cross-dressing role has usually their career started. I mean, keep in mind Jack Lemmon was a nobody when he did Some Like It Hot. Tony Curtis jokes that he was a nobody then too, but he was a nobody people were talking about. And I think that the fact that Guy Pearce particularly did this movie put him on the map, because Guy Pearce, they almost didn't cast him because he was too cute, he was too pretty. They wanted him to look more, I guess, dudeish out of makeup, and he almost didn't do the role because of that. And there's nothing that he did before that I can think of, and yet now the career he's had, it's been spectacular. Memento, LA Confidential, and none of them have anything to do with drag or being a drag queen. So it's interesting anyway. I just find this preoccupation that Hollywood has against actors playing these kind of roles is just odd. I wonder if it's still the same now. I mean, because now with gay rights and trans rights, and it's not such an odd thing to do. But what's interesting is right after this movie, Hugo Weaving did the Matrix trilogy, and then he went on in Lord of the Rings. So this definitely didn't hurt his career. Where Terrence Stamp is concerned, I mean, his career was more or less over. Like, no, I don't mean to say it like that, but like he'd more or less done what he'd come to Hollywood to do, and was he was getting too old to play the bad guys that he usually played. And like, even if it had ended his career, I don't think he had that much to lose at that point. He'd already done all his best work. And Terrence Stamp played General Zod and Superman in '78. Hugo Weaving, he was the Red Skull, which I thought was a stupid character. Guy Pearce was in Iron Man, one of the Iron Mans, Iron Man 3. So they've certainly broken that curse or mold, or definitely it's a reflection of the times we live in now, when the girls all pulled into Cupid Petey, was it, where they walked down the street, the main drag in drag, in the famous flip-flop dress. That flip-flop dress, they had $20,000 to make all their wardrobe. That flip-flop dress cost $7 to make. All of the materials came from Target in Australia. I think that in of itself is brilliant. But yeah, they filmed that scene without extras. That they didn't even warn the community that it was going to be happening. They set up their cameras. All of the people that you see looking at them as they're walking around in drag, and the people they're saying hello to and everything, they're just people. They just live there. They just live in that town. And their reaction to these drag queens walking down the street are their own reactions. Those are honest and true reactions. The other thing that's interesting about this movie is that most of the crew are in the movie. The drag queen at the end, that's not an actual drag queen lip syncing Vanessa Williams' Save the Best for Last. That's Tim Chappelle, one of the wardrobe designers. He did that whole thing at the end. Not a drag queen. Liz, the other wardrobe designer, was a maid in the hotel. I think the director played the doorman. Like, it was just very almost like mom and pop shop kind of production. And I have to say, I love that kind of thing. I am one of those people, the more hands-on and grassroots I think that a production can be, I think the more charming it is. I think that you get a real, there's people that are working on that production because they want to, not just as another job, I think when people are just doing something in the arts for the money, you sense it. So I, for one, was very pleased with the finished product for Priscilla. Something that's interesting I wanted to talk about, and I think I started and sidetracked myself. What? Sidetracked myself. Is that the movie, they were doing, as I said, Muriel's Wedding at the same time, shared some cast and crew on both movies, and the soundtrack for both is heavily influenced by ABBA. Now, what's interesting about ABBA for Priscilla is that there was no intention to use ABBA music for Priscilla. It was all but agreed that it would be Kylie Minogue music, that it was going to be her songbook, very Australian, very... I think that that's one of the things that I love about Priscilla as a movie, because it's Australian. Like, they had approached non-Australian actors, but all the actors they ended up with were Australian. And I remember even at the time going, well, ABBA's not Australian. Why are they using ABBA music? And the reason is they had Kylie Minogue all lined up to be their songstress of choice, but the producers changed. And the new production company owned a record label or a music catalog that ABBA was part of. And so their one stipulation was that they had to use one of their clients, and so they went with ABBA in the last minute. It wasn't even like, it literally almost up to the day of shooting, it was going to be Kylie Minogue. The inspiration for Priscilla was, as Stefan Elliott says, was seeing a bit of marabou getting caught blowing into a bush and just kind of waving there. And I feel like they really captured that feeling of that imagery to me. I mean, seeing the three of them in such bizarre and unique drag. I mean, they really look almost like showgirls than drag queens, climbing up the terrain in Australia. And Australia's terrain, I mean, there's nothing harder. It'll kill you as soon as look at you. I think that it was just such an excellent film. One of the things that I liked about the film was the fact that Mitzi Tick had a child, because this is a topic that isn't spoken about a lot. There's certainly now that gays are marrying and having children, it's not even an issue. But back in the 90s, it still wasn't common. People didn't talk about it, and so to have the child as part of the storyline was interesting. But the fact that Tick is married to a woman and that they are clearly in agreement with their lifestyle. I mean, the whole point of him going to Alice Springs for the show isn't to bring a show to her club. It's to come and get his son. It's his turn to take care of him. And in the movie, that only happens in the last 20 minutes. So it's not even really a story. It's an impetus to the movie, but it's not revealed until the end almost. There will never be another Priscilla. Another film they were making at the same time was Tu Wong Fu, and it just wasn't the same. There's something unbelievable about all the drag queens in drag for Tu Wong Fu all the time. That's not necessarily how drag queens go around. You know what I mean? It's it was just a weird... I felt that Priscilla was a much more true to drag film. So I think I'm just going to finish my lips because it's hard to do it while I'm talking, throw on some eyelashes and a wig, and I'll be right back. And there's the look. We got some lips, we got some eyes, we got some cheeks. That's all you need. Oh, and a fabulous Denise Cherneau wig. I am so serious. So once again, the palette that I used today, courtesy of my Patreoner, Leon Plemaker, the Bright Mattes from Beauty Bay. So excited to finally get this. I hope that I did make me Missa proud by trying to follow one of her tutorials. I also just want to say I finished the look off with some MAC glitter. This one is gold. This is an old package too. I'm sure this isn't even being made anymore. And then this is the pink hologram. I just use those on the lids. I also, my lipstick, well, it's Juvia's Place. It is their Nefertari? Yes, the Nefertari red. It is, I don't normally wear red, but I thought I would with this. I also like to dot the middle of my lip with the e.l.f. 16-hour camo concealer, white, just to give it an ombre 3D effect. And I line my lips with the L'Oreal Age Perfect Anti-Feathering Lip Liner. I don't get a lot of problems with feathering, but I do like this lip liner, and I think I will be buying more. If you're having problems with lip liner, the L'Oreal Age Perfect one is spectacular. The movie, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, it's a classic, it's a must-see. It's a fabulous drag movie, especially for inspiration. I often talk about films being inspiring for people to get, you know, ideas from. And although the fashion in Priscilla is very over the top, I think that it shows you that there are no boundaries and that almost anything is possible. The film itself is very feel-good, very positive. There's some ups, there's some downs. It deals with some homophobia and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's a great feel-good movie. Plus, I think one of the very first movies to really, really kind of deal with transgender, maybe not issues, but having a real transgender character in the lineup. I think Terence Stamp did an excellent job in that role. I think Hugo Weaving and Guy Pearce did an excellent job as well. The late, great Bill Hunter, such an iconic cornerstone to not just Australian cinema, but cinema period. And I think that it's just one of those films, if you have not seen it, you're clearly living under a rock in the middle of a very religious part of town. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But for those of you who haven't seen it, all you drag babies out there, go on out, get a look at it. It's a fantastic film. And for those of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, maybe it's time to watch it again. I'm just saying. That's it for me. That's it for this month's Makeup and Movies. And until next time, miss me. Mwah. Seriously. So much fun.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.